Now, you probably know what's coming up now. Let's try again, shall we? Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Really well done. Could you put the verse back on the screen, Ruth, just as a reward, so we've got that up for next time, just to soak into our minds. Now, it's really easy, isn't it, to become weary in doing good, to get tired of doing the right thing. That's really easy, isn't it? Can anyone think of an example of when they've been tempted to get tired of doing the right thing? Hands up, be brave. Sharon. Oh, that's wonderful. Sharon was talking about a prayer group she goes to, and she was the only person who turned up, but she kept on praying and turned up the next time as well, and more people came along. That's great. That's really encouraging, isn't it? Can anyone else think of an example of a time they've been tempted to get weary in doing the right thing, to get tired of doing the right thing? Guy? Going to PCC meetings. Absolutely. Are you on the PCC, Guy? Are you? I hope to see you there. Is it tomorrow? Yes, I hope to see you there tomorrow. I do try and keep them quick, but yes, I know the feeling. My old church, every meeting, they had a motion to extend the meeting at 10 p.m., and it went on till 11 because the PCC was full of lawyers who'd argue about the punctuation in resolutions. I had to cycle home as well. Anyway, becoming weary in doing good. Can we think of other examples? Phyllis. Sorry? Children's groups. Yeah, I think that can be an easy one to get weary in, helping out with the kids groups. I know we've got quite a few kids groups. They're all sort of leaders at the moment. Just a quick shout out for that, because it's so easy to get weary in doing good, in doing the right thing. I thought of 3 examples that are maybe particularly relevant to harvest. It's easy to become weary in doing good. This is kind of one of the big rumbling news stories when it comes to the environment, isn't it? You know, loads of us have made significant lifestyle sacrifices to help the environment, even if that's trying to sort through all our recycling and work out what isn't recyclable, only to see it all shipped off to East Asia and dumped in rivers there. Yeah, and yet we watch the government, and we watch billionaires flying around the world on their private jets, undoing everything that we've worked hard to do. It can become really easy to get weary in doing good when we're at work. There's an old saying, there's 2 ways to do things. There's the right way and the easy way. And when our work is full of people doing things the easy way, that's often the wrong way, and we want to do it the right way, which is often harder, that can be really hard. It can be really easy to get weary in doing good. Another area where I think it's easy to get weary in doing good is looking after folk who haven't got enough. You know, it's frankly ridiculous that we're in one of the richest countries in the world, and yet there's so many people who are still dependent on food banks, and that the food banks keep growing and growing. Our kids' schools started doing collections for food banks at Harvest as well, and it's wonderful, and a bit of me wants to say, well, we've been there for years, we've been doing this for ages, but it's tragic that it's still needed, isn't it? And we put all this effort into helping people, and the problem doesn't seem to get any less. We give a tin of beans to a food bank, and after all, the person eats the tin of beans, hopefully, and then they're hungry again. What difference did it make? And the temptation comes to forget about the rest of the world, to get weary in doing good, to give up, to just focus on looking after my own needs, because it's just too tiring. And God says, let us not become in doing great, because a harvest is coming. So the picture is this. There's a farmer. The farmer works in his field, probably his field. Women tended to do different jobs from farming in those days. The farmer works in his field, working hard, pulling up weeds, sowing seeds, digging the ground. It looks like a big patch of mud, and you leave it for a few months of hard work, and it still looks like a big patch of mud, and it's really discouraging. But eventually you see a tiny little shoot springing up. But it's a tiny little shoot, and you can't eat it, and you've still got to work hard for more and more months. And there's loads of work to be done, nurturing it, feeding it, watering it, and so on. And there's other shoots. And they grow, and in the end, after months and months of hard work, looking after this pile of mud, there's a harvest, and there's crops, and it's amazing, and you've got enough to eat for the rest of the year. But there were loads of months when the work looked pointless and like nothing was happening. And that's what God says it can be like when we do good. When we keep on doing good and serving those around us, we will reap a harvest at the right time if we don't give up. But sometimes we don't know what form that harvest is going to take. If you plant seed potatoes, you get potato plants, don't you? But what happens if you plant doing good in the soil? Well, there's a few different plants that can grow. Here are some likely plants that might grow. The first plant that might grow is you become more like Jesus. You become more compassionate. You become more generous. You become more loving. You become more joyful, like Jesus was. Here's another plant that might grow. You usher in a little bit of God's kingdom. So a child gets to eat dinner because you gave some food. That's God's provision for that family. And after years, maybe the child grows up and can help look after others. A young man in a difficult situation gets to go to his school prom because you donated to Shareware. A family is less isolated because you befriended them. A woman calls on God in her time of need because she has friends who pray and who told her that God cares. The various climate disasters that are happening around the world, despite some of our best efforts, aren't as bad as they might have been otherwise if we didn't make the sacrifices to cut our carbon footprints. And so it goes on. God's kingdom comes in 1,000 small acts of loving kindness in the name of Jesus, and that's a harvest. Third example that might well happen is that our example inspires others. Other people see what we're doing and want to join in, as with our kids' school joining in with food banks. It counteracts that tendency in all of us to want to give in. We look around and we see what other people are doing too. And we're refreshed and we're re-envisioned to keep on doing what God calls us to do. To love our neighbour, to serve the poor, to care for creation, to tell other people the good news about Jesus. So let's not become weary in doing good. At the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. And it's going to be amazing. Never believe the lie that your contribution is too small to be of real difference. Just remember, Jesus once took a little boy's packed lunch and he fed a crowd of 5,000 families with it. When we sow faithful seeds of good works, God makes them grow. There's a wonderful promise in Proverbs 19, verse 17, that says this: whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. Let's hear that again. Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord. So we might think that we are giving this food at harvest away. And God says no. God says, no, you're not giving it away. You're lending it to God. And God is no one's debtor. And God will pay us back with interest for the ways we've been generous to those in need. Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord. So what does this mean for us, just quickly? Let's not grow weary in doing good. Let's keep on going with seeking to bless those who don't have enough. With trying to do what's right for the environment. We've got an eco-church team here. We've got our National Bronze Award for being an eco-church. We're working towards the silver. If you'd like to join the team, please do have a word with Amy, because there's lots of things going on. Or have a go at working out your carbon footprint and figuring out ways to reduce that if that's not something you've already done. As a church, we support Shareware. We support the Uniform Project. We support a local food bank. There's lots of different ways of helping people that we do. And just in our everyday acts, in our everyday lives, let's do good. Let's not become weary in doing good in whatever ways that looks like for us. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Can we just have the verse off the screen and we'll have another go? Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Brilliant.